The Social Work Action Network, SWAN, is currently celebrating its 10th anniversary. And this year we're having our annual conference in Durham on Friday the 11th and Saturday the 12th of April 2014. Our conference details can be found on our Facebook page, which is Social Work Action Network on Facebook, and on our website, www.socialworkfutures.com. Last year, our conference, which was held in London last year, was one of the two biggest social work conferences in the country.
Swan was really good in that I didn't know what to expect, but to go as a social work student and go somewhere where you feel real support was really quite empowering. As a student, it was really good. We went along, hearing service users getting involved, hearing the support from the social workers that were there, really backing them, really being behind them. That was what true solidarity meant, and I didn't really know what that meant beforehand. So that was a really good experience, and it's really given me motivation to keep looking at that aspect of social work and in that field of being able to challenge and feel supported to do that. So that's something that's really been quite empowering, and I've really enjoyed that.
Swan itself is a very broad church. The practitioners, the educators, the service users certainly don't take one approach or belong to any one political party. All we share across a very broad and divergent group is a commitment to believing that social work fundamentally has to have a strong basis in social justice and social action.
I would like to mention some of the practical support that I got out of my association or my links with Swan. At the time, I was campaigning an international campaign to free around 500 refugee hostages in the Sinai desert between Egypt and Israel. I was desperately looking for an international awareness about the situation. People who are in power to do something about it. At the Swan Conference, I ran a workshop, and soon after that, when I left my details, a number of people got in touch with me, asking how they could help, how they could raise the awareness, what is the best way to help, and I have individually got in touch with them on the things that I was doing. There were some excellent support, including how I could engage with the British government, House of Parliament, which I ended up following those steps and speaking to various MPs, including the Foreign Minister in the UK.
Swan meetings and the Swan Annual Conference are a really friendly and accessible way for all people involved in the social work world, whether delivering service, whether educating future practitioners, or whether being recipients of service, to get together and debate from a position of equality some of the big issues that there are in social work today.
As a student embarking on a social work career, the Swan Conference was a real opportunity to gain a much deeper insight into what radical social work was all about. For me, the most important thing was to actually listen to some of the most motivational speakers that I ever had listened to before. To hear their stories on stage about how oppression and discrimination had really impacted their life and what us as social workers could do about that. Radical social work at that time probably felt like something that was meant for other people, but having spent some time at Swan and listening to some other people's stories, I realised that actually it's something that we can all be a part of if that's what we choose to do.
Currently, here in the North East, we're seeing the effects of massive cuts, which are perhaps felt greatest here in the North East of England, although they're affecting communities and social workers and social work service users across the country.
I work more or less on the front line within social work, and the worry is that there's not enough support out there. There seems to be huge gaps in terms of what's offered to families, and we tend to lose the impetus of working with families because of such long waiting lists.
The cards have impacted on social services a lot. I think as a mother myself, I've seen how they've affected families with children with regards to the services they can access and what is available for families that are from deprived backgrounds.
Swan itself is a group which is dedicated to analysing the problems which are caused by this programme of austerity and coming up with positive and progressive suggestions, positive and progressive social action projects in order to address the real fundamental problems of services being massively cut. So, if you're a social worker, if you're a service user, if you're a social work student and you want to engage in an authentic debate about a progressive future for social work, a future for social work which rejects the move towards privatisation, which we're seeing as the biggest government agenda for social work this decade, and which says instead that social work should be provided by citizens, for citizens, fundamentally in a position of equality, looking for progressive ways of working together. If you're interested in a debate which reminds you about all the good things about social work, come along to Swan, to our national conference, 11th and 12th of April at Durham University. You will have an interesting few days talking about the biggest and most profound issues affecting social work for the next decade. We hope to see you there.